How to win an argument about how prayer doesn't work, and some do's and some don'ts. And this is based on a video that one of my subscribers just recently sent to me about him, his auntie, what looks to be a cousin, and a grandmother having a discussion about his faith and about prayer. Now, I'm not going to show the video because out of respect for him, respect for his family members, because I have an aunt, a cousin, and another aunt that speaks the same way they do. And the fact of the matter is, their conversation was family love with frustration in a disagreement, but there's still family love there. So that's why you're not going to see his video, because if you said something about my family, even though they are mostly Christian, we'd have a problem, and I'm not going to do that. So here's the deal. They were having this discussion, and where the video begins to pick up, and it's a long video, but where it picks up is about his faith, his lack thereof of faith, and him not believing. And of course, the aunt and the cousin and the grandmother are emphasizing that he should just have to believe, that what caused him to lose his faith, and he just has to pray, and so on and so forth. And he explains that he gave God a shot. He gave God a chance to prove, because he was a Christian. He grew up Christian, as admitted in the video. But they were saying that he should just still have faith, and you got to believe if you want God to prove himself to you. Well, if I believe, then I don't need God to prove himself to me. And keep that in mind. If I believe, then I would not need proof of God, because belief is believing without proof. So what he was asking, he had a friend that was wanted him to get back into the faith. So he was explaining to his aunt and cousin and grandmother that, I'm going to just start saying the room. He was explaining to the room that he had asked a friend. Friend had asked him about his faith, and he's told the friend, here's the deal. I will wear the collar, I put a cross on my chest, and I will carry the Bible, and I will preach. If you can pray and get a whole bunch of other people to pray, however many people you need to pray. Because if God has done mass destructions, mass killings, mass murdering, as he did with the flood, for instance, then why can't he do mass healings? So he said to the friend, cure my son of children's diabetes. And he has a more advanced version, but cure my son of diabetes, and then cure all the kids and all the other kids with diabetes, and cure all the kids with cancer. If you can pray and your God cures in a mass curing like that, the news start reporting all these cancer kids are all of a sudden healed, all these kids with diabetes all of a sudden healed. If that happens, and then he takes his son, and his son doesn't have diabetes, if that happens, then he would rejoin the faith and he would preach the Gospels. Now, the family members, the room was saying that God doesn't work that way. Prayer always works. It may not just, it may not be when you want it, but it's always on time. He kind of let them slide with that one. See, you can't let people slide the argument. You got to stick them to the point. And then they also started saying that, well, you have to have faith that is going to work. You have to have faith. And they focus more on his son, but his statement was all the children with cancer, all the children with diabetes, cure them all in a mass curing, just like you mass murdered everyone on the planet during the flood, just like this God mass murdered societies because they didn't believe in him. As much as you do all that destruction, God, do some healing. And the family members started saying that, well, you got to have faith. You have to believe. But that wasn't the proposition. The proposition is, I shouldn't have to believe in order for the world of Christendom to come together and mass prayer and all the children with cancer are healed. Hell, I'll even take it if a third of the children of cancer were healed. But all this healing just happened. And he allowed them, probably out of the love of his heart or something, to remove the conversation to coming down to just his family. And they talked about how his grandmother, his auntie was talking about how their mom the doctor said she had a cancer, But then when they went in to do the surgery, the cancer was gone. And before that had happened, her and the church and her pastor all prayed, her and her family and the pastor prayed, and the cancer was gone, and that was God's work. So God chose to heal her. But there are many unknown things that happen in medical science, and just because it's unknown doesn't necessarily mean God did it. Doesn't necessarily mean your prayers did it. Now, I do think that the mind has energy, the mind has power, and the mind can dictate the body. We've seen this in placebo effects over and over again. But to say that God did it, she could have been misdiagnosed. If I'm thinking about the age group of the people that were in question, this would have been so many decades ago. Medical science is far more advanced now than it was decades ago. But so they talked about that, and she talked about her own personal fight with breast cancer, and that it was just a little bit and the surgery got it out. And he went on to explain that, well, you had a doctor. Isn't the doctor the healer? If you prayed, when they were in the hospital at the time frame, and if his grandmother was there, and her grandmother had failed or passed out or something like that, and the sister was there, and so he was saying that if the doctor, why didn't you allow for her to just pray instead of calling the doctor? Because God gave us doctors is the answer. God knows what. So God gave us doctors now that can do things that 200 years ago they couldn't do, and so those people had to suffer. So I would have hit that point that in the past, so why didn't God give doctors this knowledge 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago? Why is this knowledge progressive, and now we can heal things that they couldn't heal 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago? But now we have it. That's a process of medical science and knowledge and the growth of such. Everything else in the world has continued to grow in its knowledge and wisdom, yet the Bible still stands stuck. So he did make the point that if you had just prayed, then it would have been disastrous for his grandmother, but you did come to the doctor, so the doctor is the one that's doing the healing. So coming to the doctor, you can get healed without prayer. But sitting at home praying, it's most likely it's going to end in disaster. So why don't you just pray? Why are you using doctors? But of course, our culture today says that we use doctors. And our culture has turned the religion into the format where God put the doctors in place. But isn't it cruel that those people who died of cancer 700 years ago, 1,000 years ago, didn't have the medical knowledge that we have today to be able to be healed from cancer? How many people would have been saved from heart disease? How many people would have been saved from so many other diseases if those people had already been placed? How many people died of smallpox? How many people died of the Black Plague? Died of all these horrendous diseases because the knowledge hadn't got there yet. Our knowledge. Not through God's ingenuity, our ingenuity. God didn't give them that information. And if he did, that just shows his destructive nature and how he just completely ignored civilizations for tens of thousands of years just so that in the now, there's a B in here, just so that in the now, we can have this technology and lives can be saved when polio was mass murdering people in the early 1900s and 1800s. So that was some key points that he missed out on, the fact that prayer does not work if we are dependent upon doctors. But the main part was I shouldn't have to pray in order for Christians to heal people in the hospitals, for this mass healing to happen. And then they started talking about Job, and I'm going to be very brief. The family just could not understand the negative impact of Job, and they kind of just let them slide with not pushing the fact that Job made a bet. I mean, God made a bet with the devil and killed Job's family, killed his kids, and you can't replace the kids. Even though you got some more kids, you can't replace the kids that you lost. And they really focused on just that last part of Job. And the family, and he just didn't really hit them hard with the bet part. Didn't show them the bet part. The one cousin admitted she had never read it, but he let them keep sticking with God gave him double. I would have just stayed right there with the bet and the cruelty of this God and what he did to Job over a bet. That's where I would have stayed with that argument. But prayer doesn't work. Prayer is a placebo of the mind. If you do receive something, it's because of the placebo of the mind, of the energy and your desire and your emotions. So y'all have a great day, and always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable.